The QRS complex wave represents the return of the ventricles from contraction phase. The right auricle is filled with impure blood, then it contracts. Then the tricuspid valve will open and distributed to all parts of the body. Now the blood becomes deoxygenated and is carried by superior and inferior vena cava back into the right auricle. The deoxygenated blood from the lungs is carried by the pulmonary veins. It goes back to the heart. From the heart it is supplied. Hello everyone, welcome back to session 9 of this interesting chapter called Body Fluids and Circulation. Myself, B. Shobharani from the Department of Biology, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. Moving on to the remaining concepts of this interesting chapter called Body Fluids and Circulation. We all know that it's a very common process that is happening inside our body and a very important physiological process that is taking place inside our body. So it's a bound duty to understand the mechanism that is involved in the process of blood circulation. As we all know that this is a prime physiological process needed for the body, as it is the very important process to supply nutrients and at the same time to eliminate the gaseous waste from the body. So deoxygenated blood is purified and the purified blood is supplied to the different parts of the body. Now let us move on to the remaining concepts of this interesting chapter. So hope you remember in the last session we studied about the ECG, that is an instrument called electrocardiogram, which records the electrical activity of the heart beats and through a graphical representation called ECG, that is electrocardiograph. Now let us understand about the graph here. So diagrammatic presentation of ECG. How do we analyze the graph? Like based on the graph, we can assess whether the heart is functioning properly, or if not, there is something wrong with the heart functioning. Now, moving on to the diagrammatic presentation of ECG. Here you can see the P wave, here you can see the R wave, Q, R, Q, S and T. This is called PR segment. This is called ST segment, PR interval, QT interval. So where P wave, here you can see the P wave represents the electrical excitation of the atria. Atria means, as we all know, atria is also called as what? Auricles, right? Where P wave represents the electrical excitation of the atria or contraction of both the atria. So P wave will represent what? P wave will represent the electrical excitation of the atria, or what we otherwise call contraction of both the atria. So P wave represents what? Contraction of both atria. Then the QRS complex. Here you can see the QRS. So here you can see the QRS complex. The QRS complex wave represents the return of the ventricles from contraction phase to the relaxation phase or repolarization. So here QRS is called the relaxation phase. So P phase contraction of both atria, QRS relaxation phase. So as we know, there is a small pause. So how do we analyze the graph of the ECG? That which records the electrical activity of the heartbeat, where P wave represents the electrical excitation of the atria or contraction of both atria. The QRS complex wave represents the return of the ventricles from contraction phase to the relaxation phase or repolarization, and there is a general pause. Now, moving on to double circulation. As we all know, human blood circulation is double circulation. Already I have explained double circulation. That is systemic plus pulmonary circulation is equal to double is equal to double circulation. So here you can see the right side of the heart. Here this part is called the right side and this part is called the left side. So the right side of the heart is involved in carrying the deoxygenated blood to the lungs for purification, whereas the left side of the heart is involved in carrying oxygenated blood to the aorta, to the heart, from the heart to aorta to different parts of the body. So here double circulation. As we all know that always the right side of the heart is involved in carrying the impure blood or deoxygenated blood to the lungs for purification, whereas the left side of the heart is involved in carrying the oxygenated blood and supply it to the different parts of the body through the main supplier, that is the aorta. So here we can see the right auricle and right ventricle, here left auricle and left ventricle. So the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava collect the impure blood from the upper and lower parts of the body and pour it into the right auricles. So as we all know, the right auricle has a wall. The right auricle, in between the right auricle and the right ventricle, there is a wall called tricuspid wall. Tricuspid wall. And in between the left auricle and left ventricle, there is a bicuspid wall. There is a bicuspid wall. So here, when the right auricle is filled with impure blood, then it contracts. Then the tricuspid wall will open. From the right auricle, the blood flows into the right ventricle. So when the ventricles are full and immediately the tricuspid wall closes. As we all know, there should not be backflow. What is backflow? Always the flow of blood should be unidirectional. That is, the blood has to flow from the auricles to ventricles, not back from ventricles to auricles. If at all there is a backflow, that means there is some problem with the heart, which is called regurgitation. So once the right ventricles are full, then immediately the right ventricle contracts and the blood flows from the pulmonary artery to the lungs for purification, and the pulmonary wall will open, and obviously the pulmonary artery, and as we all know, the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers which are found in the heart play a great role in pumping the blood, like creating a pressure with which the pulmonary wall will open and the blood flows from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery which goes to the lungs for purification. At the simultaneously, as we know, both the process takes place simultaneously. So the left ventricle will contract and the blood flows from so the aortic wall will open, and here you can see the aortic wall. The aortic wall will open, that is, the aortic wall will open and the blood flows into the aorta. From the aorta, here you can see it is supplied to the different parts of the body. Here, as we know, the impure blood, the purified blood from the lungs goes to the heart, left auricle through pulmonary veins. Here you can see the pulmonary veins. From the pulmonary veins, once the left ventricle is full, the aortic wall will open and the blood flows from the aorta and it is supplied to the different parts of the body. So here the process of circulation takes place 2 times, hence it is called double circulation. That is, the right side of the heart is involved in carrying the deoxygenated or impure blood to the lungs for purification, and the left side of the heart is involved in carrying the purified blood from the lungs to the aorta. From aorta it is supplied to the different parts of the body. So the process of circulation that is happening towards the right side is called pulmonary circulation, and something which has to do with the word called pulmonary, lungs, we use the word called pulmonary. So pulmonary circulation, and the process of circulation that is happening in the left side of the heart is called as systemic circulation, and pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation put together forms double circulation. So left half of the heart receives and conducts oxygenated blood, whereas right half of the heart receives and conducts deoxygenated blood. Both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood never mixed up. So as we know, the interauricular septum, interauriculoventricular septum will not allow the mixing of blood from the right side of the heart to the left side. So there is no mixing of blood because of this partition or a septum called interauriculoventricular septum, which is the partition which is found between the auricles and the ventricles. Hence, human heart functions like double pump, hence it is called double circulation. So, left half of the heart receives and conducts oxygenated blood, whereas right half of the heart receives and conducts deoxygenated blood. Both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood never mix up. So, hence, human heart functions like double pump and is called double circulation. Now, pulmonary circulation, as I said, the one which is carried out in the right side of the heart is called pulmonary circulation, and the one which is carried out in the left side of the heart is called systemic circulation. So this is a schematic representation of pulmonary circulation. As I already said, pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation put together forms the double circulation. That is, pulmonary circulation plus systemic circulation together is called double circulation. So here you can see the deoxygenated blood that is collected in the heart by whom? By superior and inferior vena cava into the right auricle, from the right auricle to right ventricle. From the right ventricle through pulmonary artery, it goes to the lungs for purification. At the same time, the deoxygenated blood from the lungs is carried by the pulmonary veins. It goes back to the heart. From the heart, it is supplied, it goes to the aorta. From the aorta to different parts of the body. Different parts of the body. So, the pulmonary circulation means the circulation of blood between heart and lungs is called pulmonary circulation, and it is shorter circulation. Deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle is carried by pulmonary artery to the lungs for oxygenation, and oxygenated blood from the lungs is carried by pulmonary veins flows from the left auricle. So as I already explained about the pulmonary circulation. So the circulation, what is pulmonary circulation? Here you can see the schematic representation. The circulation of blood between heart and lungs is called pulmonary circulation, and it is shorter, the duration is very shorter. The deoxygenated blood from right ventricle is carried by pulmonary artery to the lungs for oxygenation. Oxygenation means purification. And oxygenated blood from the lungs is carried by the pulmonary veins and flows into the left auricle. From the left auricle, it goes to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle to aorta, and aorta to different parts of the body. Then we'll move on to systemic circulation. As I said, the left side of the heart is mainly involved in what? Carrying the oxygenated blood or purified blood from the left auricle to left ventricle, from the left ventricle to aorta. From aorta, it is supplied to the different parts of the body. So what is systemic circulation then? The circulation of blood between heart and all parts of the body is called systemic circulation. What was pulmonary circulation? The circulation of blood between heart and lungs is called lungs. Anything I told now, pulmonary means something which has to do with lungs is called pulmonary. Here, the circulation of blood is between heart and all parts of the body is called systemic circulation, and it is longer circulation, whereas the pulmonary circulation is of shorter duration, whereas the systemic circulation is of longer duration. So, oxygenated blood from left ventricle is carried by aorta and distributed to all parts of the body. Now, the blood becomes deoxygenated and is carried by superior and inferior vena cava back into the right auricle. So, here you can see from the aorta. So, from the aorta, that is this, this systemic circulation will be happening in the left side of the heart. Whereas this one, pulmonary right side of the heart. So pulmonary circulation will take place in the right side of the heart, and that is the systemic circulation is happening in the left side of the. So from the aorta, it is supplied to all the parts of the body. Again, from all the parts of the body, the deoxygenated blood is collected from the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, and it is poured into the right auricle, from the right auricle to right ventricle, from right ventricle to pulmonary artery, from pulmonary artery to lungs, and thereon from pulmonary vein, the purified blood from the pulmonary veins to left auricle, from left auricle to left ventricle, from left ventricle to aorta, from aorta to all parts of the body through blood vessels, namely the arteries and blood capillaries. Again, the deoxygenated blood is collected back from superior and inferior vena cava, and it is poured into the right auricle. So this whole process is called as systemic circulation. So the circulation of blood between heart and all parts of the body is called systemic circulation, and it is of longer circulation. Oxygenated blood from left ventricle is carried by aorta and distributed to all parts of the body. Now the blood becomes deoxygenated and is carried by superior and inferior vena cava back into the right auricle. Then origin and conduction of heartbeat. I think all of us know, have you heard about a word called battery of a heart? So the battery of the heart is SAN, which is called sinoatrial node. Here you can see the AVN, that is sinoatrial node, and this is called AVN, auriculoventricular node. So sinoatrial node is called the battery of the heart. And it is like, just like how we use battery for a radio or a tape recorder, in a same, like in those days we used to use this battery. So in a similar way, there is one battery which is very much responsible for the functioning of the heart, and that is called as SAN, sinoatrial node, and there is one more called AVN, that is auriculoventricular node. Now so the origin and conduction of heartbeat. Heartbeat means what? One contraction and one relaxation is equal to one cardiac output, one cardiac heartbeat, we can call it as heartbeat. Now here you can see the right bundle branch, the internodal pathways, SA node, AV node, then left ventricle, and Purkinje fibers, and one more called bundle of His. They are very, very important in regulating the flow of blood from the ventricles to the pulmonary artery and to the aorta also. They play a very great role. So now let us understand, and the signal for the contraction and relaxation is made possible by SAN. From SAN, the electrical impulses are passed on to AVN, auriculoventricular node, and from there on, the bicuspid wall, which is the tricuspid wall, which is found in the right side of the heart, opens, and the bicuspid wall, which is found in the left side of the heart, will open. So thereby the auricles are emptied. So once the auricles are emptied, immediately the walls close, and then the bundle of His and Purkinje fibers create a pressure or a pull with which the aortic wall in the left side of the heart and the pulmonary wall in the right side of the heart will open, and the blood flows from the right ventricle into pulmonary artery, and from the left ventricle to aorta. From pulmonary artery, it goes to the lungs for purification, and aorta will be supplying it to the different parts of the body. So this is the mechanism that is involved in origin and conduction of heartbeat. This is very important from examination point of view. So now let us understand. So coordination of heartbeat is due to the presence of a specialized system called cardiac conduction system, which is present in the heart wall. So this is very important. So this is called cardiac conduction system, which is present in the heart wall. It is composed of specialized muscle tissue that generates and distributes the electrical impulses. What do you mean by electrical impulses? Waves of contractions is called electrical impulses, which stimulate the cardiac muscle to contract. So it consists of what? Sinoatrial node and auriculoventricular node, AVN, bundle of His, and Purkinje fibers, named after the scientist. So the one which play a great role is SAN, AVN, bundle of His, and Purkinje fibers. So all these play. So origin and conduction of heartbeat is made possible by the presence of a cardiac conduction system present in heart wall. It is composed of specialized muscle tissue that generates and distributes the electrical impulses, that is the waves of contractions, which stimulates the cardiac muscles to contract. It consists of sinoatrial node, SAN, auriculoventricular node, that is AVN, bundle of His, and Purkinje fibers. So the heartbeat is initiated and regulated by SAN. So whatever contraction and relaxation which is responsible for heartbeat is made possible by SAN. So SAN will send the electrical impulses to AVN. So SAN will send the electrical impulses to AVN, and AVN will direct the tricuspid wall and the bicuspid wall to open. And at the same, so the heartbeat is initiated or regulated by SCN, is situated in the upper wall of right auricle just below the opening of the superior vena cava. Here you can see just near the opening, this is superior vena cava, this is superior vena cava, and this is inferior vena cava, right? So the SAN initiates the heartbeat and set the pace of heartbeat, hence SAN is called the pacemaker because it sets a rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart, hence it is called as a pacemaker. So SAN is called as a pacemaker, or in common words we use the word called battery of the heart, battery of the heart. Since the pacemaker is made up of muscle, hence which controls the heartbeat, the human heart is called myogenic heart. Why it is called myogenic? Human heart is called myogenic heart because the pacemaker, that is SAN, is made up of muscle tissue which controls the heartbeat, hence the human heart is called myogenic heart. So the heartbeat is initiated or regulated by SAN, sinoatrial node, which is nothing but a muscular tissue which is found in the right side of the heart near the superior vena cava, and SAN initiates the heartbeat and sets the pace. Pace means rhythmic contraction and relaxation. I think all of us know abnormal heartbeats is something which indicates there is some problem with the heart functioning, right? So the rhythmic contraction and relaxation is very much responsible for the normal functioning of the heart. So hence it is called the pacemaker. Since the pacemaker is made up of muscle tissue which controls the heartbeat, the human heart is called as myogenic heart. Then SAN generates and transmits the waves of contractions across the muscular walls of auricles, results in the rhythmic contraction of auricles. As I said, how is SAN called the pacemaker? How is it making the heart to beat rhythmically? Rhythmic contraction and relaxation, as we use the word called lub and dub sound. So the SAN generates and transmits the waves of contractions across the muscular walls of auricles, results in the rhythmic contraction of auricles. So when the auricles contract, so right auricle is filled with impure blood, left auricle is filled with pure blood. So they contract. So it is emptied. So how is it emptied? That is, the tricuspid wall which is found in the right side of the heart opens, and here also in the left side of the heart, the bicuspid wall will open. So it is emptied. As I said, completely it will not be emptied. 3/4 of the auricles are emptied and 1/4 of the blood is remaining in the auricles. It is not completely emptied, nor there is unidirectional flow of blood. So nor there is bidirectional flow of blood. There the flow of blood will be always unidirectional. So these impulses are picked up by another set of muscle tissue called AVN. As I said, the SAN will send the signal to AVN. SAN, that is sinoatrial node, sends the signals, or what we use the word called electrical impulses, to AVN. As we know, the very word itself will tell you, auriculoventricular node means that which is found between the auricles and the ventricles. So it is, and this AVN will allow the bicuspid wall and the tricuspid wall to open. So until and unless the signal is not given by SAN, AVN will not allow the opening of the tricuspid wall and the bicuspid wall. So SAN and AVN also play a very great role in the rhythmic contraction of the heart. Then, which is situated at the junction of interauricular ventricular septum, and AVN in turn transmits these impulses to the wall of ventricles through a special set of muscles called bundle of His and Purkinje fibers, resulting in coordinate contractions of the ventricles. So at the same time, as I said, once the auricles are emptied, the ventricles become full. Again, the ventricles contract. The right ventricle contracts, which is having the deoxygenated blood. Here, the left ventricle will also contract, which is having oxygenated blood. So that is made possible by the contraction of the ventricles is made possible by bundle of His and Purkinje fibers. So bundle of His arise from AVN and descend into interventricular septum and divides into two branches that breaks up into network of Purkinje fibers which pass into walls of ventricles. See how beautifully the heart is functioning. Without our knowledge, as you know, it is an involuntary function, and without our knowledge, the rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart is happening. Such a beautiful mechanism is going on inside the heart. So SAN generates and transmits the waves of contractions across the muscular walls of auricles, results in the rhythmic contraction of auricles. These impulses are picked up by another set of muscle tissue called AVN, which is situated at the junction of interauricular ventricular septum. AVN is in turn transmits these impulses to the wall of ventricles through a special set of muscles called bundle of His and Purkinje fibers, resulting in coordinated contractions of the ventricles. And bundle of His arise from AVN and descend into interventricular septum and divides into two branches that breaks up into network of Purkinje fibers which pass into wall of ventricles. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in this particular session of this very interesting chapter called body fluids and circulation. So I'll be back with some more interesting concepts of this chapter called body fluids and circulation. Till then, goodbye and thank you.